Welcome back to Direct Edition, a podcast about nothing and everything. I am your host, Dave. You remember me? The guy from the previous 3 seasons that talked about comics and movies and music, and you remember me. Don't you? I won't sing a song, but I will tell you that I'm excited to bring to you a little compendium to an interview that I put on my comic book based channel, West Coast Davengers. This interview is with the legendary creator, cartoonist Stan Sakai. For the people that don't know who Stan Sakai is, if you're old enough to remember the premiere of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon, and you're old enough to remember the figures, the action figures that came with it, you'll remember Usagi Yojimbo, the samurai bunny. I had been trying to get Stan on my channel for a couple of years, and he finally had time, and we sat down and did about an hour. And then after that, I kind of wrapped it up on the end of West Coast Davengers, and he gave me a little more time. So we talked for about 20 minutes, which is what you're going to hear today. I suggest that if you're not subscribed to West Coast Davengers and you are interested in this, you go back and listen to it or watch it and then come back and listen to this. For people that aren't interested in that, this will give you a taste of who Stan is. He's been creating comics since the late 70s, early 80s. He's won pretty much every award you could win in the comics field, both for his comics creation, the artistry, and also additionally for his lettering. He is an award-winning letterist for Sergio Aragonés for the comic book Gru. He also lettered the Spider-Man news strip for 2.5 decades. And we talk about a lot of that in the West Coast Avengers episode. And he talks about how that influenced a lot of his life and his storytelling, and his mom being this really good storyteller as well. And he fact-checked a lot of the stuff that he based Usagi on, which is a lot of Japanese folklore and history. And so he's just... he's a wealth of knowledge, a very, very, very well-spoken, friendly, warm human being. I could listen to him talk for hours, and I bet he would talk for hours. But his cartooning skills are just something else. They really are. I mean, he has done this character for 42 years. And he pencils it, and he inks it, and he writes it, and he letters it. He's got somebody doing the coloring, but in the early days, he was doing it all, even though the comics themselves were black and white. But the paintings that he did for a lot of the covers obviously weren't black and white. His friendship with Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, more specifically Peter Laird, is what got Usagi Yojimbo a toy and in the animated series, and propelled him to a new level of stardom, the character. Stan has stayed very much humble and does not seem to embrace the impact that he has with his personality. He has completely stayed as just a humble cartoonist, and that's an amazing thing. So I'm going to play this 20-minute interview. You're going to hear me talk about fandom and fanzines and some cartoonist talk and just a little bit of everything. And I thought this would be a fun way to have you enjoy your day. But before I even get into that, I just want to say thank you to everybody who has come back for this 4th season. I hope you've enjoyed the episodes that have come out so far, even if it's just the one. This is I'm doing this out of the love of what I enjoy doing, and I'm hoping that you'll help support it and help grow it. That's all. So without any further ado, why don't we speak to Mr. Stan Sakai. Kind of going back to the fandom and fanzines, I've seen your name in, I want to say maybe it was some RBCC, or some of the late 70s as Stanley Sakai. When you started submitting to fanzines, what was your introduction to them? How did you even know that they existed? Because there was no internet.
Yeah, I suddenly just received a copy of a thing called Dallas Fantasy Fair magazine, and it just came out of nowhere. I had no idea how it got on that mailing list, and it has ads for different fanzines. So I bought a few, and it was later on that I heard about the comic book guy,
Reader?
Don and Maggie Thompson.
Okay.
The CG, what I forgot what it was.
Yeah,
But,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
The name escapes me too.
yeah. But and it was through that I really got more into fandom. But before then, it was just fanzines, anywhere from mimeograph to high quality lithopress.
Yeah, yeah.
And I submitted to a lot, like Chronicle. Yeah, I can't think of any now.
Well,
but there are quite a few.
It's the most fascinating aspect of like the lineage of comics to me, because you look at everybody, you can take a look at the sample from, 60s to the early 80s of fanzines. Everybody was involved. People were running them. You see guys like Bernie, obviously Bernie Wrightson and Kaluta. Steranko was the king of the fanzines.
Oh, yeah.
You see
Wally Wood had Wits End.
Yeah, Wits End. And Marvel even tried to capitalize on it with Foom, and Foom was great. Yeah. Foom was great. But you even see guys like later on, Mark Waid would be all over Amazing Heroes. Obviously Gary got in the zine game with Amazing Heroes, and it's like, it's a treasure trove of information. Like you can pick up Comic Reader and see early Mike Mignola fan art, and it's just like
Miller.
Yeah. And what was the name? There was one that Miller was part of, and I forget the name of it. I think it was out of Portland, but it's just a fascinating thing where I think it's desperately needed in some way, shape, or form these days, because comics, they're mainstream in a way, but not really.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen what Chip Zdarsky's been doing with the Zdarsky Comic News, and he basically is producing his own comic shop news thing now.
That's great.
Yeah. And it's
then it died out with the rise of the independent comic books. So
yes, and Wizard kind of killed it too.
Oh, okay. But I've seen a couple of boxes of all the old fanzines, so they're kind of neat.
No, they're great to look through, because I'm a huge Bernie Wrightson fan, as I should be, as everybody should be. And there is so much unpublished like art of his that ended up in fanzines. And same with you. There's tons of your art out there that I've seen in fanzines of you doing characters that you would never do.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of that. And we can trace, there's a great book for anybody that doesn't know. It's called Meet Me at San Diego, and it's about San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And the path of San Diego Comic-Con and fanzines and fan culture, right, they're parallel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wrote one of the introductions to that. That's wonderful book. And
it is.
Lots of photos, and it's really great.
Yeah, and from what San Diego is now, obviously it's a completely different beast, but if you go back and read these paragraphs told by the people who started, who were there, who were tabling, a lot of Shell Dorf stuff going on in there. And so yeah, when you're first doing conventions, what do you remember, besides San Diego and outside of the West Coast, do you remember the first convention you did maybe on the East Coast?
Oh, no, I don't. I know I did some early Heroes Con. We used to do Mid-Ohio Con like every other year.
Mm-hmm.
A few. I went to the old New York Comic Con when it was at the Javits Center.
Yeah. I remember 92, 93, 94, I think were the first times I had gone. And for me that, was like, oh my God. Everybody that I have enjoyed comics of is at this convention. It was mind blowing.
Exactly. Yeah. When at Javits Center, I went to visit the people at Mirage Studios, the Turtle people, and we drove down and went to the went to the convention, and we all had a great time there.
Yeah, that must have been great. I mean, what Kevin and Peter had built with that, and then what they went on to do, Tundra, admirable, amazing thing, and then the Zurich benefit, the foundation.
Yeah, I was one of the Zurich judges, and we go through the submissions every quarter, or every 6 months or so, and choose which ones you want. And there were some really impressive things in there. I was just
so many careers
that Peter asked me to be one of the judges. So it was great.
So many careers kickstarted from that Zurich grant, because I mean, the one that comes to mind is just somebody that I'm friendly with is Derek Kerr Kim, who would do a lot of books and go work into animation. But then he came back this past year with the Last Mermaid, and it's a fantastic book, absolutely fantastic book. Is there anybody that you maybe encountered as a young cartoonist when you were, kind of, Usagi was in his 90s, glory, that, came back years later and you're like, oh, this person is now this person? Like, I imagine there's a lot of mentorship that maybe you've done throughout the years with people being a cartoonist and not a penciler or an inker.
Right. Well, I used to be a thesis advisor to the Center for Cartoon Studies in Vermont, and I just did it for a few years, and it was great to kind of nurture upcoming talent. And I mean, they had such wonderful talent. It was my pleasure to do that, and I kind of miss that. I haven't done that for a while, but I talked to Julie about it, so maybe I should do it again or something.
There would be so many people that would benefit from it.
And we've had people come over, like Randy Clute, who's a very young cartoonist himself, and he stayed at the studio for about a week where we worked together, and he'd see how I do things, and I like to do more things like that.
Yeah, there's a huge community of indie creators. I think the indie creator community has grown by leaps and bounds just in the last 4 or 5 years. And for my part, I'm not a comic creator in any way, but I think Cartoonist Kayfabe created this real energy in people with what Ed Pisker and Jim Rugg were doing, and it gains and gains. But is there, as somebody who does everything, right? What advice would you give to somebody who is looking to get into creating their own comics and trying to maintain a sense of balance of how to get it all done if you're the writer, penciler, inker, letterer?
Well, you need the discipline, and I like to work every day, and which I work almost every day. But first of all, get at least basic writing or art classes. Learn the principles of perspective. A lot of times, nowadays I don't work on the computer, so I think there's a perspective program. However, learn the principles of perspective, storytelling. One of the most important things is go to conventions, go to Artist Alley, network, make your way, show your work. No matter how good you are, if you don't show your work to others, no one will notice you. And with the internet, it's easier now to have your work out there. However, because there's so much work out there, it's hard to get noticed.
Yeah.
But go to conventions, network, show your work to friends, teachers, professionals, editors, publishers, make your way up the ladder. And because, I say friends like to work with friends, a lot of my non-Usagi work has come from friendships. Like with Jeff Smith, I did Riblet backup stories for him. Sergio, I started working for Groove because, of our friendship. And in the old Fantagraphics days, I used to have a backup stories for every issue.
Right.
And again, friends like to work with friends. And so I invite friends to submit 8-page stories or something. So network is probably one of the most important things a young cartoonist can do now. Table in Artist Alley. You never know if the guy sitting next to you is going to be in a position to offer you work 10 years from now.
Right. And that story is echoed throughout everybody I've talked to that got their start doing conventions. It's the same thing. It's, I talked to Sanford Green a couple weeks ago, and he went to Wizard World Chicago, whenever it was in the late 90s, early 2000s. And that's what he did. He walked around and somebody said, yeah, I got a book, actually, I'd love you to work on it. And, Sanford now, another amazing cartoonist who goes on to co-create Bitterroot. But it's funny how we just came full circle with that, because it's all about connecting with the community, the fandom, or the other side of it, the creator. And it's about staying connected.
Exactly. Actually, I had mentioned Usagi was first published. I heard about Steve Galacci through a friend at CAPS. And, Fred had told me, oh, Steve needs more stories. So he's looking for something. I sent him a story, and more than 42 years later, I mean,
Yeah,
being published.
It's amazing. The legacy of this character will, be around, and, I mean, I don't know, could be another 40 years, could be even longer. We're all hoping for it, because, it's interesting. You mentioned Jeff Smith, and we're talking about Sergio and Kevin and Peter. Between the four entities right there, it's interesting how the anthropomorphic thing came in, and Kevin and Peter talk about it, right? It was an ode to Frank Miller. It was a parody on Daredevil, but Usagi wasn't. Usagi was just happened to be a bunny, but these stories are not parodying anything. They're not even taken from anything but real life. Do you think that's a piece, if not a huge part, of why he is still here and everything is still awesome, and things are going great, the stories are great, and people are reading it and still talking about this character?
Well, because it's not parodying anything, so it just has its own storyline, like Boris the Bear.
Right.
If you remember, this is in the 80s or early 90s. Each issue was a parody of something.
Yeah.
And you just can't do that for that long. But with Usagi, I own Usagi. I can do anything I want.
Yeah.
I've had Usagi, stories of just plain adventure. I've had romances. I've had historical, cultural. I've had Usagi fight the Martians. I've had all kinds of stuff. And it's whatever I want, I'm in the mood for.
Sure.
And that, I think, for me, makes it more interesting. And I think for the readers as well.
Yeah, as a creator, I always, it's with music or movies or anything, if you can tell the passion of the creator through their work, and if they're bored or not. And I would just like to say, there is one person that has been able to make a career out of parodying and does not ever seem to be slowing down. That's Weird Al Yankovic, who is, he lives in Hawaii, I want to say most of the year, if not half of the year. But that's music. I did want to ask, just because I love video games, and the Turtles have had such a great history in video games. Will we ever see an Usagi video game?
He has a Roblox game.
Okay. He's a Roblox game.
That, I've never played it, but yeah.
Is that
hopefully there will be. We are working on a few other things with Usagi right now that has not been announced, but
right. Yeah, the Netflix show was a show set in the future. It was a descendant of Usagi, which I know it ran for 2 seasons, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. There's really no desire for me to ever see anything like a movie of Usagi. I think what would be interesting, is there any audiobook versions, or have you ever narrated?
I think there's an online site that has audio versions of Usagi.
Yeah, it really lends well, because there's a great narrative throughout all of these stories that you've created, that I'd almost want to listen to somebody reading it, and I don't know why I don't listen to audiobooks, but it's just the joy I get from reading Usagi is very unlike anything else I read. You know, like I said, Barks is,
Oh, Barks is, you know.
and then Toriyama with Dragon Ball. Like that's another thing. And I know he was born. I think I want to say he's like he was 2 years younger than you or something like that. And obviously we lost him. But when I read that, and I think about Barks and I think about Usagi, I'm like, this is how you do pacing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely perfectly. And then,
Thank you.
yeah, and I wonder if there's anything just as a storyteller that pacing, does it come naturally to you, or are there things that you kind of look to inspire you for that? Because I don't even know how you would like pacing, how that works as a storyteller. I don't know how you get really good at it like you did.
I don't know. It's just whatever, if it feels good or it reads well, then because I go through the story a couple of times. Once I do a story outline and I pace the story that way. However, the real pacing comes in the thumbnails where I break the pages down
Right.
and try to make sure the story flows nicely. Each page ends in either a complete thought or a cliffhanger. But yeah, so
Yes.
that's how I determine the pacing, and I'll change it again when I'm on my final pencils.
Mm-hmm. And your final pencils you're doing still 11 by 17, right? And you're just kind of you kept it the way it's always been.
Yeah, exactly. Still hand ink with a pen that's been discontinued for the last 25 years. And
So I was in Tokyo last year at Comic-Con. I saw you there, but you were super busy, so I didn't want to take up your time. But did you do art supply hunting when you were there?
oh, of course,
Yeah.
the old platinum black opaque, and yeah.
It was my first trip there. I spent 3.5 weeks there, and I've never seen. I never knew how much they embrace the comics making aspect. It's like part of the culture. You go to 7-Eleven and you can get art supplies.
Yeah, you get manga paper and everything. You know?
It's mind blowing. Imagine this country adopted that just 1% as much as the Japanese did. We'd have some, people having access to art supplies and, going to Mandarake. Oh my God, what a mind blowing experience. It's like they celebrate, the culture is celebrating the creators.
Yeah.
So, and one last thing I just want to mention, because I really enjoyed seeing your collaboration with Peach. Anything more to come? Because I mean, I look at her and she's doing what nobody else is doing for for Marvel.
Delightful. Peach and yeah, they're terrific.
Yeah.
I just did a cover for one of her X-Men books.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So again, it's a variant cover, and yeah, I did another cover for a thing called Rivals, and it's a Punisher cover, and I think it's character designs were done by Peach.
Yes. Yeah. She did a lot of great character designs for that game. Yeah, she's delightful. So talented. So talented. But and I just want to say, I've also got to say how much I really love the Strange Tales Hulk story that you did. It's about 20 something years ago now, but I think that's Marvel's.
Yeah, I just got a call out of the blue from Marvel, and they said I can use any of the characters, do whatever I want with them. And I said right away, I want to do Samurai Hulk, and I'm going to kill him at the end.
Well, it's the such an interesting time for Marvel, because that they had come out of that really dark period, and Quesada and Palmiotti take over and really just give us an era of like 5 to 10 years of Marvel's going to do anything and you're never going to see it coming. But I'm glad that you really have just stuck to this path of Usagi. Yeah. And we're all better off for it. I mean, as fans and readers, as other fellow comics creators, like you've done so much for this medium that we can never thank you enough. But I want to say thank you for your time. Besides the first issue of Tabo and the eBay Live. Any convention appearances coming up or anything else?
I will be at San Diego Comic-Con. I've cut down on my conventioneering, but I'll be at San Diego. I think this would be my 47th year or something, like that. And I hope to be at one more convention later this year. There's some convention I love that I haven't been able to return to for such a long time, but I love to.
Well, for anybody watching or listening, you will find all of Stan's links below in the description. And,
Wonderful. Good.
Yeah, I'll make sure that all the bases are covered. And thank you so much for your time.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to that little mini interview. And once again, I really implore you, if you enjoyed that, go check out West Coast Davengers, my YouTube channel, and click on the interview. I'll link it in the description below. Even if you're on Spotify or Apple or any of the audio-only formats, I'll throw it in the description, but you can just find it, West Coast Davengers, Stan Sakai, or, I was hoping that if you typed in Stan Sakai interview on YouTube, it would come to it. But it's a testament to somebody who has just mastered a craft and kept at it. And what's really amazing about Usagi Yojimbo, which is in the original interview, is he owns the entire IP. Nobody gets to do anything based off Usagi Yojimbo if he doesn't want it, or nobody gets to make any licensed product unless he wants it. Nobody can ever, he had a Netflix show. There was 2 seasons of it. I didn't watch it because it was more geared towards kids. And it was about a descendant of Usagi in the future. I will watch it at some point. In today's world, capitalism is destroying everything. People don't get credit for the work that they do, or they get taken advantage by a corporation, and the corporation buys, does everything, makes billions of dollars, and doesn't give the creators anything. Stan is a very unique person in that he has complete control, and that affords him to say yes or no to anything he wants, which is amazing. And that's, for creators or creatives, I think that's the goal, is to make something that will provide you a comfortable, means of living, and you don't feel like you're being exploited, or you don't feel like you're doing this all for nothing. And Stan has a family, and I know his stepson works with him, and Julie's a cartoonist, his wife, and she does conventions with him, and he just seems to really enjoy what he does, and in that enjoys his life. It's admirable. I mean, it's so admirable. And I can say this for somebody that's going down the path of reading everything that he's ever put out with Usagi. It's so enjoyable. You don't have to be a comic book fan. You don't even have to really think about it as a comic. You're just reading this. It just flows so well. It's very much like the old Sunday strips, where you want to read more. You want to read more. So pick up a book and read Usagi. So yeah, I was super delighted to talk to him, and it means so much to me that I get to put, this is my thing now. This is what I do. I get to interview people that I appreciate or admire. And this podcast is my avenue to do so. The third season was fantastic. It really opened up some just metaphorical doors for me, not with talking to people, but the people that I can talk to, and how I can really bring any type of conversation here. And I'm excited to see who's in store for this season, and who I get to bring these great conversations with to you, my listener. And speaking of my listener, now that we're in the 4th season, I can comfortably say that my plan by the end of this season is to start either a Patreon or some type of subscription service, not to put this podcast behind a paywall. It still will be free to everybody, but as a way to support and maybe make some money back, because I'm not making any money on this podcast. But I'd love to hear from you in the comments, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify. I'd love to hear from you in the comments what what you think would be a good bonus for the listeners. Early access to episodes, additional interview times, a shirt, something, that you can wear. I subscribe to a bunch of Patreons. Some offer early interviews, exclusive, chat, asking questions of guests before they appear. Some offer, well, I can't offer this, but it's, like a vinyl, once a year, like a special vinyl or piece of merch. But, I don't think anybody listening to this is going to be like, oh, this guy wants money. I don't want to deal with that. I'm not asking for a ton of money, but it would be something like $5 a month, just because I pay an editor for this, and right now this is not monetized. But just chime in with anything in the comments that you think is good. If you subscribe to any podcasts or anything like that, support it. But really excited for what I've got in store this season, and hopefully can bring in some of these interviews that I've been trying to get. Some people you might know and some people you might not know. So big thank you to Stan Sakai. Big thank you to my producer, Daniel. Big thank you to Andrew for helping me out with all of the stuff that he helps me out with on the synopsis and titles. And thank you to my dear listener for being here for season 4 of Direct Edition, a podcast about nothing and everything. I'm your host, Dave, and I'll see you later.